Well, hello there again, friends. Today is 6/27/2022, and today is Odin Project Vlog Day 125. It's been a hot minute since I posted my last video. I got in a groove, so to speak, in a flow, and I got close to being able to finish the project, so I figured I'd just lick it up and make a longer video here for the last wrap up. So I also had some dental work done on Friday, so thank the Lord that I didn't have a lot of pain afterwards over the weekend, so I was able to crank this out. So before we get started, I just want to I watched a YouTube video, and it just brought to my mind and my heart that I think there's probably people that are watching this and just watching me go along these projects and watching me do these things, and they're just kind of sidelined. I just want to encourage you to keep going. That when it gets tough, that's okay. When the going gets tough, take a break. Stick to a schedule, honor it, whatever it works for you. I know I answer a lot of that. That's the most common question I get is, how do you keep going and how do you stay motivated? And not to get into a long dissertation on it, because there's a whole thing and a whole spread of knowledge in Oden at the beginning, very beginning, on time management and stuff. But really, it comes down to a couple key things. You can't get through with motivation, because motivation you won't have, because when you get stuck on a issue, you won't have the motivation to keep going. This is where grit and perseverance really keys in, and you have to set a time that you're going to be able to do it. Work on this each and every day, and it's attainable time. If it's just an hour a day, put an hour a day, and even be specific, like what time of day. And then pick out what days you're going to take off, because you don't want to do this 7 days a week, because you'll burn out. Take time off, schedule that, take the time off, and just keep going. And it's okay sometimes if you get really stuck and you just need to take a break for a couple days or maybe even a week. Take a staycation or go on a real vacation or whatever, and just it's okay to step away for a little bit from the monitor, from the code, in order to gain more perspective and then come back. So I just wanted to speak to that. That was on my heart. No particulars. I'm not pointing anybody out or anything like that. Just something I was thinking about, and in a YouTube video I watched a little bit ago, talking about that. So anyway, getting back here. So we're going to go over the index.html, the styling for it a little bit, even though I don't really like to do the styling discussion in here. I will for the validation portion, and then we'll actually go through the form validation JavaScript, because there's quite a bit that's been done to it. So getting started here in the HTML, going down the line, starting with the form, we call the novalidate I call the novalidate function, or parameter, if you will. The novalidate basically tells the browser that it's not going to do any checking, because I'm going to have JavaScript do all the heavy lifting and do all the checking with the Constraint Validation API. So I don't want the browser basically getting in the way of that. And so if you put novalidate in your form element, it won't challenge it. And then email is there, required. We didn't do anything different with that. It's a type of email. Input types email anyway. Excuse me, Tret's active. So I put a span on each of the inputs. Underneath each input, you'll see them highlighted here for each one of the inputs. And what that does is it's a class of an error message, and you use aria live polite to basically provide an error message to the user to fix whatever it is that you've programmatically put in your text content. And we'll go over that in the form validation section, but I just want to show you we put it inside a span. I put it inside a span. So the class is error messages, and then this span will pop up when there's an error, and that will house that span will basically be a filled-in span with a background color red that will house the information, the text that the user needs to finish the input correctly. So then we go down here. So Prettier's kind of mangled up my what I'm used to seeing for my styling a little bit for my text, but we have an input here. Country, as you can see, I left it as text type. Text. I had a discussion last time about maybe switching this to a drop down, but then I have to get into some scope creep with the project, and yeah, so I'm glad I didn't. So as you can see here, long story short, I decided not to change that to a select or drop down or anything like that. I left it free flowing text and just wrote some API validation around it to keep put some guardrails up, so to speak, for the user. It still is free flowing. So the existing problem is that someone can type in a United States or US or spell United States wrong, and it'll take it. So this isn't perfect, but I got to the point where it works good. It's throwing the correct errors as it should, and it's enough to complete the assignment, because I would like to move on. As I've said with other projects, you can scope creep this until your fingers fall off on most of these projects. So at some point you got to just call it good, because this isn't actually a part of the point of the project, this mini project. The point of the mini project was to write validation API. So that is what we're doing. So it's got a required field and then a min length of 2, which I'll go over all this. This will make more sense when we get into the validation, and then and definitely when you see it on the screen. But we have a min length of 2, which means that if it's 1, it'll throw an error. And then we have the span for that, and then we have zip code, and zip code is a text as well. You're probably wondering why that's a text. It's a text because I had it as number before, but it wasn't. The browser was starting to get in the way, because whenever you put number as type input, it puts restrictions on it, on your input, to only be numbers, and it won't let you. I don't think it even lets you. I don't remember exactly, but I don't think it even lets you type in a letter. And so I wanted it to basically give me a little more free reign, so I could write good API validation against it, and you'll see that here in a little bit. And so we have ID name and required min length 5 and 5 max length 5. That's so basically there's 5 digits in the zip code. A true non-malformed zip code will have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 with a dash. But again, I wanted to keep things simple, so I just kept it at 5. And the pattern here is this. I used a hex engine to get this. So what the /D is digit. So basically it's looking for a pattern of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits, any digit 0 through 9. Okay, so then we go down here, we have password. This is type password, so we get a little bit of a restriction. That's actually a wanted restriction. I was able to write good API around it, a good validation API around it for checks. And it's required as well. Min length of 6, so we're going to make them have at least 6 characters. And then the pattern here, this is very important. I'm going to try to explain this the best I can. So this is a hex engine, if I said hex earlier, I'm sorry. Regex. This is regex, regular expression. So regular expression, what this is doing is it's saying I want anything that I can give anything that has a number, which is that D for digit, and anything that's A to Z small case. I need 1. So I need 1 digit, 1 any lowercase, and 1 any uppercase or cap, and 1 that is any of these, which are your special characters basically that I punched in from the keyboard. And then the end here, the in this mustache brackets, this is 6, meaning that's the required min length of 6 that we're going to key off of. So the regular expression here of 6 comma just says that, hey, I need a minimum of 6, and I need 1 of these, one of these, one of these, and one of these. If I don't meet that pattern, I'm going to throw an error. And actually, then the conf password, which is the confirmation box, is the same thing basically. It's the same regular expression, type password, and min length 6. So basically, it's just repeating itself. But I wrote some unique API validation around it to make it do what it needs to do. And then we have our button submit and reset here. And then, forgot to take that space out. So one thing you'll notice that's gone is the DOM message is gone. So I had a DOM message class div down here. I actually did a couple different things with it. It wasn't working right the way I wanted it to. The idea of it was going to display a success message when the form was successfully submitted to provide that validation to the user. But I was having problems with it, so I stuck it up here underneath button, and I was still having problems with it there. Basically, it was a manipulation. I think it was the way that I have the modal set up. So it would submit, you'd see it for the text content for about a brief half a second, and then it would disappear completely, and it would refresh automatically. And I think it had something. It was a combination of the submit button doing its thing, and then it being inside a modal, so that I didn't want to spend any more time on it. So basically, I found a clever way around that. Instead of doing a div on the screen, I did a alert message to the user, a pop-up. So I think that's just as clean and sexy and does the job. So there's the HTML. The CSS I won't spend a lot of time on here, but I do just want to bring some attention to. This is the validation portion, as you can see in the comment code here. We have email invalid, country invalid, zip code invalid, password invalid, conf password invalid. So basically, if the API renders something invalid, we're going to give it a background color of this like light pink shaded area, and that's going to indicate to the user that they have either an invalid field or a field that basically is otherwise not filled in that's required, and they won't be able to move on to submission without it being completed. And then the second one is email focus invalid. If you remember, focus is when you click the mouse inside of that particular field. So when we do that, we're going to turn the background color to none. Excuse me. And we're going to turn the background color to none. And so what that's going to do is bring the focus back in, and then we're going to turn it back to invalid if the API is validated or violated. And then we have error messages. This is a generic, not generic, but it's used a lot, and you'll see in the validation JavaScript. But basically, the error message, that's the actual span box that we looked at here. So the different span elements, that's the error message CSS error messages with the padding and font. Yeah, I won't go over all that, but basic stuff that just basically creates the span box that they'll visually see. And then the active adds a 0.3 em of padding in it, and that just that's there so that when the span pops up and is visible, we're going to make it active and give it some padding. And then error messages without active is basically hidden because the active is not there, and the color is white. So basically it blends in with the rest of the background, so you don't see it. Okay, so here's the big boy. So this DOM for modal module, this was from before, so this is nothing new here. So we're going to start here. A lot of it's repetition. There is a lot of code here, so I'm not going to go through every single one, but I'll go through the first one and then you'll get the point. So we're going to validate the form with the Constraint Validation API, and we're going to do Constraint Validation API. It's a self-contained, self-invoking modular pattern, just like we had done with this, with the last description of the DOM in the last video. Excuse me. So we're going to start with a const form. We're going to create a form with document.get elements by tag name, form 0, position or index 0. So this is basically going to grab the form. We do index 0 just because we have, when you get elements by tag name, elements plural, it means it's going to automatically create a node collection. Well, this one's a HTML collection, but the same difference as node collection when we're doing queries. So you have to specify 0, which is kind of silly because there's only one form, but that's the way I did it. So a const email, we're getting the element by ID email error. We're gonna query selector. This is something I came up with uniquely, located it online. We're actually, instead of doing 2 lines of code, we're doing it 1. We're query selecting email and span.error-messages at once, because we are going to use those two elements in tandem. So in the email error variable. So when we call email error, we're both calling the class ID and the span together, and doing that for again for country, zip code, password, and confirm password. So then come down here, we have an event listener input function event. Now we're going to run checks to see if input for user is valid. If so, reset class and clear the DOM text. So basically, we're going to look to see if what they entered is valid. If what they entered through the validity check with the API, if it's valid, we're going to clear the text content if there's anything in there. Because if you remember, we're going to run this in a loop. So if there was something in text content, we want to clear it. So we're going to give it a blank string, and then we're going to give the class name of error messages. And remember, I told you before that it's going to be used commonly everywhere. So the error messages is the class name for the span. So we're just going to give it the span name of that class, error messages, and then it'll disappear. If you have active after it, that means that it's going to be appearing. But else, so basically, if email is not valid, we're going to call the show error function. And then just skipping down real quick, show errors down here. So if we do, just to keep the flow right for you guys for the video, so if you show error, we're going to run validations against email. So just sticking with the email example, if document.activeElement is equal to email, we're going to, so this is an if statement. I had to Google this. So active element basically tells you where your active click is. So if the user's actively clicked an email, like they've got the cursor in there and it's blinking, that's going to be the active element. So if it's email, I did that because I ran into problems without having these these first if statements. If the active element is not in there, is show error will run all of these, and I was obviously running into problems because each of these represents the individual form fields. So I don't want them all ran. I only want the one ran that I'm looking at. So that's why I put that in there. Inside that if is another if. It says if email validity value missing is present, then we're going to email error.text content. You need to enter an email address. So we're going to throw an error. Else if email validity type match is the trigger for an invalid item. In an email example, it's definitely looking for, because we told it's an email input, it's looking for the @ and a like a .com or .org, something like that. If it's a mismatch, meaning that you typed in something and it didn't see the @ for example, we're going to trigger a text content inside that span that's going to say entered values need to be an email address. And then after those two, ifs run, whatever is applies there, we're going to give the class name error.message active, error-message active. And what that does is brings that class name forward and puts it on the screen with the text content on it that they can see. And then they run through it, and then they just keep running through it till they get it right. And then when they get it right, it comes back up here and it's valid. and then it moves on. So let's just keep flowing with the email one. Okay, so countries, yeah, so it's going to go back up here on the email. So if it's valid, where'd my email go? There we go. So if it's valid, it's going to move down. Okay, these are the different checks for the other ones. So we're going to go down here and we're going to run checks on submission to ensure valid entries. So then what it does is when the user clicks the submit button, we're going to do a submit event and pass in the event parameter, and we're going to check to see if email is valid. We're going to do another check. So if email.validity.valid is not valid, that's what the bang in front, the exclamation point, call it bang. If that's not valid, we're going to again loop them through, kind of go back to show error, give them the show error function again, and we're going to do event.prevent fault. And what this basically does is a fancy way of not allowing the form to be submitted. So it basically, when this method is called, it actually stalls out the submission of the form. So that's what that does. And here's the alert the user of successful submission occurs. So I kind of jumped ahead here. So basically, if email, country, zip, password, confirm password are all valid, we're going to alert. And this is what I was talking about earlier. I got uniquely around having to use the div. So I got rid of the div text content, and I just alert out successfully submitted, thank you. And it'll be a pop-up, and they just hit OK. And then here is a little DOM section for creating the event listener for the reset form and to clear the DOM when clicked. This is important because say they got all the way through it, but they didn't submit it, and they wanted to reset it because they want to put new information in it. Not only does this reset the items inside of the text boxes, but it also clears out any existing active spans that may have been up from other error messages. So what we're doing here is we're going to add an event listener for a reset button, and we're going to call clear form. And here's our content, our local clear form, here's the code for that function. We're going to create an active error node message node list that's querying selector all .active, so it's taking anything that's currently in the active class, and we're going to loop through each one, and we're going to change the text content to an empty string, and we're going to change the class name to error message, which, as we've talked about before, will basically clear anything that's in the text and basically hide it. Before I had it deleting, and it was giving me problems because if you delete a node, it won't run right unless you actually refresh the browser. And so I try to stay out of the habit of performing browser refreshes because that ends up just driving the user nuts. And it's probably, I think I read somewhere, not Oden, but somewhere else, that it's not, I think it was Stack Overflow one time, that's not good practice to do reloads on your resets. So I try not to do that unless I feel I have to. So this I was able to get around that, not have to do that. So yeah, I jumped around. I'm gonna leave obviously this will be up on my GitHub. There's a lot here, and I don't want to make this video super long. I will bring a quick attention to a lot of it's all pretty much just repetitive. The only thing I will bring attention to in the video here particularly is the show errors, so you can see what the different elements are doing. So there's your email. There's the value. There's country. So we do value missing. You need to specify your country. That's pretty standard on everyone. So I do a value missing if they basically didn't put anything in. They tried submitting the form or moving on. And then there's a too short one on this one, which is kind of cool. So your specified country value is too short. Minimum length is two characters, and that's doing that because we had the minimum set at 2 on the country. Yeah, it's right there on the country there. So that's where it's keying on that, and then we're doing the same thing. It's replication, just different variable names. This one's a zip code, content missing, or missing value. You need to specify your zip code. too short, your zip code's too short, and then we have another one for pattern mismatch, and that's where I showed you the /d regular expression. So it looks at that and says your zip code must be 5 digits, i.e. XXXXX. For pattern mismatch, password, we have value missing. You need to specify password. We have too short. Your password's too short, does not meet minimum 6 characters. So again, we're looking at the minimum length attribute on the HTML. And then else, we have a excuse me, a pattern mismatch. Your password must contain at least one upper, one lower, one number, and one special. And I even give them a hint for what the specials are. And that's a pattern mismatch from that regular expression that I showed you earlier in the HTML. And then conf password, this is kind of cool. So you have value missing, you need to confirm your password, so if they don't put anything in there. And then I did another else if with an if embedded. This is kind of interesting. I just had to uniquely work through this. I spent quite a while on this one. But we're going to do if conf password dot validity pattern mismatch. So if the pattern mismatch is there, just like in the previous one, we're going to break down into this if. So we're going to check to see if the pattern matches for both password and confirm. So if password.value does not equal confirm password.value, we're going to throw out text content, your passwords do not match. And then again, error message is active. So that's pretty cool. So if you wonder how you do that, you can do a .value to compare the entries in the browser. Even though they're coming across as obfuscated dots instead of free text, obviously the browser and JavaScript will see the text behind it. So that's pretty cool. So I know this is getting long, but I do want to show you it in the browser just real quick here. It's kind of cool. Spent a lot of time on this, a lot more than I thought. So thought I was gonna, but here everything's coming up here. So we've got pink, 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 which means that these are required fields. So if I start typing in, you'll see here it is. Entered value needs to be an email address. So it's already starting the API validations. If I delete that, there's another validation. You need to enter a valid email address. So we'll just r@r.rf.c. It's kind of changing as we go per the instructions of the requirements. And there it is. Goes white when we're confirmed. Country. Your specified country value is too short. Minimum length is 2 characters. Delete it. Now it says you need to specify your country. So let's do USA. Zip code. Your zip code's too short. Delete that and go to empty. You need to specify your zip code. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect there. And because we put minimum length of 5 on the min length on the HTML requirements, I actually am typing 1 here and it won't let me type in anymore. So that's pretty cool. So you can't it isn't possible to overtype a zip code in this instance. So password here, we're going to start typing in some stuff here. So your password is too short, does not meet a minimum 6. So if I delete that, then it says you need to specify a password. So if I give it something that's not when it gets to 6, it throws your password must contain at least one upper, one lower, one number, one special. So at 6, then it looks to check to see if it satisfies the regex of having at least one of each, and it does not, so it will throw out an error until it does. So to prove to you that this works, if I give it one upper, one lower, one special, and one number, it goes away. And then the confirmation here, we start typing in, your password does not match, because it doesn't. If you delete it, it's driving me nuts there. It says you need to confirm your password, so we know those validations are working, and passwords do not match. If I keep typing this in, you'll see passwords don't match. Here, if I type in the right one, it's perfect. So hit submit form, bam, successfully submitted, thank you, click OK. Of course, we're not going to save that. And then it goes back to the front page, or the front, whatever your front screen is. So again here, if we do a bunch of junk, didn't validate, we didn't get all these errors, and we're like, hey, we're just going to reset. We do the reset form, and it resets it. But yet it doesn't screw up because we didn't delete the nodes. It goes ahead and starts back over, and it's ready. So ready to enter in the pop up the spans for the checks. and when you do a reset, and so it doesn't blow out the spans, it just basically clears them and hides them and gets it ready. So that is it. I don't think I missed anything. Oh, I will say the one other thing is I did decide to remove the click event that we had from the last video for the window. So right now I'm clicking, you see my little mouse right here. I'm clicking on outside the modal and it's not disappearing. I decided to get rid of it because it was becoming a UI nightmare, and because I wanted this modal to stay up, because there was a ton of times where I was testing things out and I was typing and I accidentally clicked out here in the gray area and my modal disappeared because I had that event listener on the window from our previous video discussion. So I got rid of that code. That's so it no longer does that. So in order to get out of the modal, you have to hit the X. So that's the only way to get out of the modal at this point, is you either have to submit a successful form or you got to hit the X, which makes sense. That's, I would suspect that's traditional, more form related, workflow for the user interface. So don't forget to push your changes to GitHub, and then if you're following along with me, you'll want to go ahead and revisit this URL here, the creating and publishing your unscoped project for your package for NPM. I wanted to walk through this with you, but I remembered last time I did this, it exposes my password in clear text in the terminal, so I won't be doing this live with you, obviously, on the screen. But don't forget to do this if you're following along. If you don't want to package this up and submit it to the registry, you don't have to do this part. And that's it. So thanks for coming along with this long video. I knew it was going to be longer. And any of you that stuck to the end, like I said in one of the other videos, congratulations. You're one of my dedicated OGs. So anyway, please like, share, and subscribe for more content, and let me know in the comments section how you guys rounded off this mini project that wasn't really a project, but ended up being quite a bear. But it was good. I learned a ton. So with all that said, till next time, see ya.